Welcome to another episode of the No Ceilings Podcast. I am Tyler Metcalf, joined as always by Tyler Rucker. Rucker, how's it going?
Doing good, Metcalf. I'm pretty pumped about this one. We got a fun episode ahead of us and a very special guest that doesn't need an introduction, but I feel like we're gonna give him one anyways because he deserves it.
He absolutely does, and I'm incredibly excited to welcome on this week's guest. He's someone who I've been a huge fan of and consumer of his work for a very long time. He is the founder of NBA Draft Junkies, a host of the Locked On NBA Draft podcast, and the well-deserved inheritor of the NBA Big Board newsletter and podcast. He is the one and only Rafael Barlowe. Rafael, how's it going?
It's going good. All that makes me sound important. So.
You are important to us. Come on,
Absolutely.
man. Like,
it just, I mean,
pumped for you.
Yeah, it just, by it being me, it just, it sounds good. Like I used to always, hear when people were doing like they get introduced and they're just kind of like, wow. And I'm like, what do you mean, wow? That's you. And I just kind of had that moment where, the inheritor sounds really important.
Hey, you're important to the draft grind, man. We've all been following your work forever, and it was awesome to get that news. So congrats to you. I mean, I know that's in good hands now moving forward.
Thank you, man. Like I knew about it a few weeks ago, and I don't think I've had time to process it. And so last week, Chad was in Israel. So he's operating on a different time zone. And I'm usually in Europe, but I'm here in the States right now. And I wake up in the morning and I get a text that says, I'm going to announce my retirement today. So I get up, like literally get out the bed, and I run to my computer to because actually he wanted me to write a letter, just kind of introducing myself to the people that weren't familiar with me. So I get up and I go to my computer and I'm trying to type the letter, and then bam, he fires the tweet off. So I'm like, oh man. I mean, it's still like, I'm still half asleep. And ever since then, like I've kind of had a little bit of time to process it, but right. I had no idea that he was going to announce it on Saturday morning. I literally had no idea. So when he sent the tweet, or when he sent me the text, it might have been like 6:00 in the morning. And I didn't see it until I woke up. And yeah, my life kind of changed a little bit since Saturday. I think I gained like 500 new followers, and now it's pressure, man. It's pressure. Chad is such a legend. He opened the doors for me and for you, and so there are people that are used to his work, and now it's kind of up to me to succeed him and the path that he's laid out. I mean, I'm up for the challenge, but at the end of the day, it's still a little bit of pressure. But I mean, there's much harder ways to make a living than watching basketball.
Right, exactly.
So that's kind of like my take on it. But I'm thankful for the opportunity. Thankful for being on the show. I've been joking for a while, like this No Ceilings army that you guys have put together. It's kind of crazy, man. Like, I mean, you guys really got an army going on. I compared you guys to Walmart. I don't know if you heard it on Steven's podcast, like how Walmart they came in town and they took over and they made it just kind of dominated that space. And I feel like that's what you guys are doing. So congrats to what you guys have going on at No Ceilings.
Well, I guess we're just trying to keep up with you and match your guys' work, because it's taken 10 of us to match your guys' output. So
I don't
appreciate
know.
it. That's too kind.
You guys are pumping out content 6 days a week now, right?
You're trying to. I mean, I feel like I've heard you say it before, like iron sharpens iron, but it is like all friendly. I think we've been watching your work. You do unbelievable stuff and kind of motivates all of us to keep pushing forward. And it's like, man, like, I feel like the one time I relax and all of a sudden it's like Rafael just posted something. I'm like, damn, all right, got to get back into it. Like, so,
I feel the same way.
You're in great hands, moving forward. I think you're going to do an outstanding job, but yeah, we were pumped to get you on this episode.
Thanks, man. Anytime. I'm I have to remind people like I'm still the same person. Like people are like texting me like, "Oh man, I appreciate, you came on my podcast 2 years ago, or I thank you for having me on as a guest." And it means a lot. I'm like, look, I'm the same person. My number's still the same. Like Biggie said, same number, same hood. It's all good. And so anytime you guys want me on, man, just let me know and I'll come on.
I appreciate that. And so you're someone whose content, when I was first kind of really getting into the draft world, your breakdown videos were some of the biggest ones on YouTube that I came across and have been consuming for a long time. So before we dive into just kind of our reactions and impressions from the first weekend of the NCAA tournament, I kind of wanted to get your perspective on how you approach scouting the tournament and what you go into, what you weigh, if anything, and just how you kind of view these prospects, specifically in the tournament compared to the regular season.
I mean, one thing I'll say is that I am human, and so last impressions do mean something. Now, it doesn't like outweigh what 30 plus games of work has done, but I mean, I think it's just natural to go on your last impression. But I also feel like there is a bias to it. So let's say like you really like a prospect and he has an awful game, then you're like, it was just an awful game. But if there's a prospect that you are iffy on and he has an awful game, it's natural to be like, see, I knew it.
Yeah.
This is what I've been saying. So, but yeah, I mean, when I look at the tournament, I do like to see who steps up in the tournament. I do like to see a certain level of assertiveness or being aggressive. Same thing with the conference tournament. I like seeing how guys play under pressure. I like seeing how guys play against really good competition. But I don't let it outweigh, the 30-something games. Maybe a little bit if it was like a guy in a smaller college and then he played like a really good team and then he may have struggled. I'm not one of these guys that felt like, for example, I think the best example that I can think of is last year with Drew Timme. He had the game against Baylor. I don't think he played a bad game, but everyone is like, see, once he goes against athletes, he's no good. He struggles. But I'm like, dude, just played Evan Mobley like a week ago, and he did fine. So my approach to scouting the tournament is the same, but I do look to see like who shies away. If you're like a guard, if you're not wanting the ball in the clutch, or if you're looking to make big plays, like a Kennedy Chandler, for example, even though they lost, I loved how he competed that particular game against Michigan. And I think Michigan plays like a NBA style defense in a sense. And I thought that, he shined in that. So I will say that game against Michigan has probably pushed Kennedy Chandler up a couple spots on my next board. But I've been high on Chandler all year. So again, maybe it's the bias of when you like somebody and they play well, you're like, see, I knew it. And if they don't, then you may feel a little bit different.
For sure. And if most recent impressions tend to weigh heavily, the impression that Paolo is leaving after these first two rounds has been pretty extraordinary. So Rucker and I have talked about Paolo a bunch this season, and we've been hesitant. We've had really mixed feelings all throughout the season, but I believe he is number one for you, and
Yes.
You are all in. So let's just start big picture with Paolo. What do you like about him?
Well, coming into the season, I had him as my number 2. I had Chet ahead of him, and then he dominated that early season matchup. But one of the things that I liked about Paolo that I don't think he's fully been able to showcase is his passing and his playmaking. He showed some flashes in the Michigan State game. I think he had 4 assists, but I know of 2. Like one of them, Kills dropped a pass at the rim. And then I think there was one where Mark Williams dropped it. So he could have easily had 6 assists. I think there was a game against Syracuse where he like lit their zone up for like 9 assists. And I think that in the NBA, if you're going to be a primary scorer, then I think you have to be a good playmaker. I don't know too many guys, and maybe you can say Tatum, who has improved, but I don't know too many guys in the NBA that are like really good scorers that don't pass the ball very well, especially in today's NBA. And so I think of, like if people are comparing him to Tobias Harris. So if he's Tobias, but he's a better playmaking Tobias, then that probably allows him to get more points because you can't necessarily double him. Even though I don't think he's Tobias at all, I just think people have been making that comparison. And so one of the reasons I'm higher on Paolo than Chet and Jabari is because I feel like at the end of the game, I can give the ball to Paolo and say, go get me a bucket. If you play him straight up, then I think he can punish you in the post. He can get by you. He can create his own shot off the dribble. And if you want to send the double, he's going to make you pay for it because he has the instincts and the vision of a natural playmaker. And I don't feel like I can give the ball to Jabari and say, get out the way, and he's going to get me an easy shot. I feel like you get the ball to Jabari, he's going to get in his and I'm not knocking him, but he's going to get in his triple threat, and he's going to shoot a pull-up jumper, a no-dribble jumper. He may have a 2-dribble limit, and even though he had 4 assists in both games, I don't think he's on Paolo's level as a playmaker. And then with Chet, I don't think you can give him the ball and say, hey, go get me an easy bucket. So that's one of the reasons why I'm higher on Paolo. I think he's the best shot creator, and I think he's the best passer of the 3.
Rucker, over the season, we've made our feelings clear. We've kind of gone back and forth on him. I know that you've just recently done a real deep dive into Paolo. So after doing that, have your feelings changed significantly since last we talked about him, or have they been kind of more reaffirmed?
Well, I mean, Rafael's on, so I gotta say yes, but no, I'm being serious. Like, yeah, completely done a shift, and it's been pretty remarkable. And I'm glad Rafael brought up the point about the playmaking because that's exactly what I talked to you about Metcalf on the side before Rafael came on. Like what he's done lately as a passer, like with his vision, it's a completely different monster now. I even was like looking at the numbers. I think he's almost doubled his assist numbers in like the last 8 games compared to the rest of the slate. So watching his film from the beginning of the year to like this last month and change, it just seems like he's playing more like his speed now. Like beginning of the year, he was a little out of control trying to figure out what he can do. Now it seems like he's letting the game come to him, and you're really seeing he could be really dangerous with the playmaking on top of it. So I don't know. I think the shot selection's also improved. I think he's like being more patient and not trying to force some stuff. But if the playmaking is coming into that part, like, yeah, this is an entirely different monster. And I think Rafael's spot on. When you keep debating Chet, Jabari, Paolo, like I'm pretty adamant that if I needed a bucket, I'm giving it to Paolo. Like I feel like that is the obvious choice right there because he can just do so many different things. And Metcalf, we've talked about it before. His footwork is
absurd.
It's
the
absurd.
Footwork, the fluidity.
Yes. So I mean, that's a force. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I feel like Zion's passing wasn't fully unlocked at Duke.
Right.
And Paolo has shown better passing ability than Zion did. I don't even know if Zion had a positive assist to turnover ratio at Duke. And we saw when he played his last season, I guess last season was his second year, that Zion was playing some point guard for the Pelicans at the end of the year. And I think Paolo can do the same things. And there's not as much spacing with Duke because he's playing with Mark Williams. And then he has I think Wendell Moore shot well, decent. AJ Griffin I feel like I didn't see him miss until
yeah, seriously.
until the Michigan State game. But I think like with more spacing, I think Paolo's passing is going to be more unlocked. And one of the reasons why I'm so high on him, I mentioned it in the show with Steven, is like, all right, so you look at Chet and you say, well, man, if he can only gain some weight. And if you look at Jabari and say, well, if he gets stronger, I think Paolo's being punished because he doesn't have that one thing where you're like, hey, he needs to get stronger and he'll be this. And I feel like him becoming a better three-point shooter,
right?
I think that's easier for him to develop into a better three-point shooter than it is for Chet to gain 30 pounds or for Jabari to be a better creator off the dribble. So that's why I've been riding this Banchero bandwagon. And I saw a tweet yesterday, and I retweeted. I think it was by Dion on Draft, and he said, if everybody's comparing him to Jabari Parker, why not Jason Tatum? And I agree 100%.
I gotta cut you off, Metcalf, before you get crazy, because I actually have like a weird, crazy point about Tatum that I think last night when I was watching Paulo, I kind of have that vibe too. I feel like when Tatum doesn't fall in love with like the 3-point shot, he's such a monster. Like because it opens up his playmaking, like attacking, dishing off. And I feel like Paulo has that same vibes to me, where it's like, I know they're different type of players, but when Paulo lets the mid-range game and like the attack and dump off, like we saw with that Mark Williams pass, he can really do some special stuff. And I do feel like he's reading the floor better right now. So I feel like beginning of the year, he was kind of falling in love with that 3-point shot. Now you're seeing the shot selection. Like he's letting the game come to him. He's being a little bit more patient. And that's why I'm starting to really, heat up with that. And of course, Jabari having the bad game, everyone's going to overreact to that. But I do think there's real questions that Rafael's bringing up. Like Jabari's just, some of the shots he hit this year were like unbelievable. I still can't get over it, but when it's not there, what is he going to do? And I still think there's some questions about that. So I'm right there with you. I mean, Rafael, I got a question for you about Paulo. Like his NBA fit, I've heard a lot of people like kind of question it, with people thinking like, do you have to force feed him like he's an old school, like play through him in the post? And I feel like I've watched him lately, and it almost seems like he's got some ability to kind of, be at the top of the key, run the offense, make plays for everyone. And, even going back to that game earlier in the year against Gonzaga, he was bringing the ball up and throwing full court dimes and just hopping all over the place. So do you see like his kind of being just one of these forwards you can play through, or do you think you kind of got to feed him in the post, or if there's a little bit of mix of both?
A little. You know what? I had this conversation last summer. I was in Miami and I was watching, I was filming a guy who was, they wanted me to film some content to try to get him on draft boards. And Bam Adebayo happened to be in the gym. And so I'm a Blazers fan, as it is posted on the Twitter page with my face over Dame Lillard.
Had to do it.
So I went up to Bam and I introduced myself and I said, and this is kind of like a long-winded answer. I said, I'm a Blazers fan. What in the world made Portland take Zach Collins over you? I said, you fill so many needs that Portland lacks: the athleticism, a secondary playmaker, defense, rebounding. And I like Nurk, but I mean, I take Bam over Nurk.
Right.
And so I said, what did Portland miss and what did all these other teams miss? Was it because you sacrificed at Kentucky? And he said, well, yes. Going to Kentucky, you have to sacrifice something. That's just part of one of the things that you buy in. But he said, if you paid attention to my high school tape, you could see that I was making some of these passes. I was doing a lot of the things that I'm doing now. So he said, when you evaluate guys, try to watch their high school film, because sometimes high school will tell you what they can do, while once they go to college, they aren't able to showcase it. And when I look at Paolo, I did watch his high school tape, and I saw that he was a really good passer. Yeah. And then, in high school, usually like the best player, it's kind of like football. The best athlete is the quarterback, even though like every great football player has probably played quarterback at some time in their life. And with him, he played some point center or point forward, whatever, in high school. So I saw the passing, I saw the skip passes, I saw all of that. Why I don't think he's been able to showcase that all the time at Duke, because they have other guys that, if they're playing off the ball, they're not as effective. So I do think that he has sacrificed some of his playmaking skills. So to answer your question about his NBA fit, I see him as a guy that could be a secondary ball handler. I see him as someone like, in my dream scenario, he's in Portland, right? Yeah. So you run this Lillard, Banchero pick and roll, but you give him the ball in the middle of the floor, and he can make some of those Draymond Green reads that,
right.
When teams used to trap Steph early in Draymond's career before they like really respected him as a passer, he used to get the ball in the middle of the floor, and whether it was kicking to Clay in the corner or throwing a lob to Looney or Bogut, And I think that, not saying that Banchero has Draymond's IQ, but I think like if you have a 4-man that can make plays in the middle of the floor, I mean, that opens up your entire offense. I've always felt like with Houston, when James Harden was there, if you took the ball out of his hands, they didn't have anybody that could put the ball on the floor and make a play. So I think Paolo is someone that would be a really good complementary piece to like Dame. But you can also make teams pay for switching. You know, if you put a small on Paolo, then he's going to take him to the post. If you try to defend him with a bigger, stronger guy, I think he has enough off the dribble to where he can get to the rack. So I think a creative coach can just really make him a weapon, which is why I'm so high on him.
No, I think your point about what he does, like in that mid-range and elbow area of the floor, is so important, and it's something we keep seeing over and over again by him, because he has this unique blend of kind of fluidity, balance, footwork, size, and athleticism, where he can really easily manipulate his defender's momentum, and whichever way they're leaning, he's spinning back the other way, and then that's when the playmaking really comes in, because he forces that help rotation, and that now he's slipping off a dump off pass to the dunker spot or hitting that overhead skip pass to the corner. What's frustrated me, I guess, earlier you brought up his high school tape, and what's kind of frustrated me is that we've seen a lot of that kind of coasting at times this season with him as well, that we also saw in his high school tape. His high school tape was so impressive at times that I wanted to chalk a lot of the coasting up to, okay, he's just out there just trying different shit, where he's experimenting. He's like, I am so much bigger and better than all of these guys. We're up by 30. I'm going to see what I can do if I try this, double crossover, step back, turn around, fade away 3. And, results were very mixed. But then this year, it felt like the effort also kind of came and went, and especially on the defensive end and with rebounding. Do you have any concerns or worries about him as a defender, or do you think it's more of a role kind of issue with him?
I mean, yeah, there's a little concerns, especially if you're going to compare him to Chet, which, he's going to be compared to Chet. Mm-hmm. He has been since, I guess probably since they were in high school. So Chet is obviously going to look better on the defensive end. Same with Jabari. If you're one of these guys that loves, what do they call them, stocks, his stocks are good. It's just, he does have I call it the LeBron, the late career LeBron, where it's just like, I'm going to let this guy get by me, and then I know I'm going to try to beat his shot up on the glass when he gets by me. He does have a tendency to do that. But when you said about the high school stuff, you're up 30 and the trying different things, I actually like it, because it's kind of like, all right, I'm working on this against a live defense. Yeah. I'm using these guys as live practice dummies. Now, you can't do that in the NBA, but in high school, when they were up 30, I kind of like the fact that he let you know, I am this much more talented than you, and I can try stuff on you because you can't stop me. I kind of like the arrogance in him when it comes to that point, which I think also is why I like how he was confident enough when the game was on the line to take over. Where I felt like Chet, when the game was tight, I didn't see him touch the ball. He clearly deferred to Timmy. Not saying that he shouldn't. Timmy, I think, is a better college player and a better scorer. But to answer your question, yes, there are some concerns on defense. But I will say that I think he made the season-saving block for, it extended Coach K's career another game or so. So, there's concerns, but I don't think he's unplayable. I think that's the biggest thing about the NBA is, all right, if this guy is on my roster in a playoff series, are they going to hunt him every single play, and is he going to get ran off the floor? I don't think he'll get ran off the floor.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you from that standpoint, because I actually kind of like his on-ball defense. I think that's where we see his footwork kind of come into play, or at least translate from the offensive end. Because I feel like when he's directly engaged or challenged, that's when that kind of arrogance comes back out. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, you're not beating me. And I think he moves his feet pretty well. It's just off ball. I have some frustrations. Rucker, where are you at with him defensively?
You definitely see like the coasting, but I kind of agree with Rafael. I feel like it's just, he's like daring people to go at him because he wants that block. I don't think he's unplayable. I think he has some foundation where like some fine tuning, some coaching. If he's alongside like a defensive minded, player, like maybe he goes to Detroit, which would be awesome fit because I'd love him and Cade. But maybe he's got like Isaiah Stewart next to him to kind of work on that. And they, he has so much offensive firepower that it just makes you be like, okay, if you can just kind of hold your own defensively, like we're going to be so excited with what you can do. So I'm not overly concerned about it. I'm more just damn excited about the playmaking flashes that he's really shown lately. I mean, that's an entire new animal now that I'm like, okay, where was this guy in the beginning of the year? This is fun. Like I'm all over this, but so yeah, I'm not too worried, Metcalf. I think when you're the star at some of these teams, I also think you can kind of try to catch up in a weird way. Like the star treatment where it's like you're catching your breath. You might be getting a little lazy, but I think when guys take that next jump, they're attentive. They're trying to send a message and send a statement to the rest of the league. So I think Paul is going to be fine.
Yeah, I also think that with Mark Williams behind him, I think there is a tendency to be lazy. I mean, we see it in the NBA. Like LeBron, for example, when he knows AD's behind him, he's going to try to jump the passing lanes and he's going to try to bait the guy into AD. And I think you see that a lot when you have such a great rim protector behind you. So hopefully he does go somewhere where he has a rim protector that can cover him and has those lapses. But I mean, I don't know unless it's some crazy situation where he ends up with a team that has a great shot blocker behind him that is projected to be where he's projected to go.
So Paulo's number one for you, and he has been for a long time.
Yep.
Chet and Jabari tend to make up most people's top three in some form or fashion. Is that the same with you, or are you seeing something different?
Yeah, I have a piece that I'm probably going to release tomorrow. I think maybe if Jaden Ivey has a strong tournament, and let's say they go to the Final Four, I think he might have a chance of moving up to 1 or 2. I think it's an outside shot, but it also depends on who is selecting number one. I think a Sam Presti is gutsy enough to say, even though it may not be the best positional fit, but a Sam Presti is gutsy enough to be like, no, I'm taking Jaden Ivey. I'm not going to go with the consensus here. While I do think that some other GMs who are probably going to go with the consensus because it's safer to go with who everybody is mocking to in the top three. But yeah, I mean, I think like, let's say Purdue does go to the Final Four, they win, and Jaden Ivey is getting to the foul line 9 times a game like he has the first 2 games in the tournament, and he is just changing games with his athleticism. I think somebody's going to be like, okay, we see what Ja Morant is doing. Now, I don't think Ivey is the playmaker and passer as Morant, but he could at least be like Westbrook, where he's just using the penetration to collect 8 or 9 assists a game off dump offs and driving kicks. And so I think he has an outside chance.
So besides Paolo, who we all agree has kind of taken that first weekend by storm and just really dominated both the games he was in, who else from that first round really caught your eye, or were there any kind of concerning performances that you saw?
I would say Jabari was a little bit concerning. And again, it's one of the things, if you're kind of, I don't want to say biased, but if there's some concerns that you had and then they have a bad game, it kind of like, see, I knew it. And so one of my concerns with Jabari was, I mean, how does he score if he has to attack a closeout? And I always felt like he needs to be set up more than being able to create his own shot. That's a little bit of a concern. But some of the guys that kind of stood out to me are the guys that weren't necessarily on draft boards. So I really like Kyler Edwards, 6'4", big guard. He's been playing point the last few games. Decent passer. I think he only has like 3 turnovers so far. And I mean, he's a senior. The efficiency isn't there. But he shot like 40% from 3 as a junior. It's down to like the 30s now, but it's weird. He's shooting like 8 threes a game and only connecting on like 30%. But he is someone that maybe a team could bring in as like this weird weapon, like that Bruce Brown type weapon, where you're like, Bruce Brown was like a point guard at Miami in a sense, where, Edwards is like strong enough to defend multiple positions, has the instincts of a playmaker, and if he can knock down threes like he did as a junior, then there may be a spot for him. I am from Omaha, Nebraska, so I am a little bit biased towards Creighton, but I thought Arthur Kaluma had a really good game.
Yes.
What is he, like 6'7", 220, showed some ball handling. You can make a case and say he was the best player on the floor in that Kansas game. And, depends on if he decides to test the waters or not. But I was really impressed with him. Of course, the guys from Arizona, they had big games. So, I mean, there was a lot of guys that I felt like really made a strong case for themselves. Kennedy Chandler, another one. So, yeah, I mean, it was a great weekend for some guys.
I'm thrilled that you brought up Kaluma, because ever since, I think he was high school teammates with Nolan Hickman, and just over the summer catching up on high school tape, Kaluma always stood out, and I think he's a jumper away from being like scary good. I'm very excited for him next year. Rucker, what about you? Is there anyone specifically who kind of really impressed you, or on the opposite side of that really kind of reignited some concern?
I don't mean to be biased, but I keep going to my boy Christian Coloco. I've just been so damn impressed with what he's done since the Pac-12 tournament. I think he's really making a case to maybe be a first-round pick. He's just shown some great strides and development over the years, and I think he's shown some soft hands lately for Arizona. He's been a humongous piece. Like, I don't know if they won a couple of those games without him. But I still think there's a lot of potential in his game. Like, I know people are going to be a little nervous that he's a junior, but, he's just the strides forward from his freshman year when he was barely playing for Arizona. Like, I think that's going to be a really intriguing big man in this class. So Coloco just keeps doing some good stuff, and I've been really impressed.
Yeah, funny story. So I was in LA this summer, and a friend of mine was playing pickup ball. He's like, hey, come to this gym. And there's some guys playing pickup. So I go to the gym, and John Lucas, the Lakers assistant coach, was running the workouts, and he was playing. Ousmane Dieng was playing.
Yes.
And then Kevin Looney was there. Some other guys I didn't necessarily know. And Coloco was there, and he was dominating. And one of my regrets is I should have made a post in saying, hey, watch out for Christian Coloco. Because the way that he's playing now was the way that he was playing pickup ball. And he was literally outplaying Kevin Looney. Now, whether or not Looney was going hard or if he was just trying to stay in shape and keep a rhythm, I don't know. But Coloco was impressive. And I remember, only reason I knew who he was because he had on Arizona gear. So I, pull up the roster and I'm looking, okay, that is him. And, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what jump he made prior to that, but he had a great summer and it's paying off now, and he's probably going to be, if he continues to play like, I don't expect him to go like 12 for 13 from the floor,
right?
But he could be a back end lottery pick. I mean, he's played that well, so yeah, I definitely think he helped himself.
So I feel like Coloco, Mark Williams, Walker Kessler, and even kind of Kamagate get grouped together a lot in discussions. So if you're saying Coloco goes, or you could see him potentially going back into the lottery, do you have him ahead of those guys? And if so, what kind of really separates him in that realm?
Yeah, it just depends on which time of the month you ask me.
Ain't that the truth this time of year?
I think all of those guys have just kind of rotated.
Yes.
And I think it's just going to be an acquired taste. I mean, you look at, let me make sure I get his name right, Walker Kessler. It always it just throws me off.
Yeah.
Because right when I'm thinking I got it right, and if I'm going to say his name, I'm like, wait a minute, is it which way? So I had him at the lottery in one of my last big boards. And I think that he does have some offense that, is untapped, but it didn't look like it in the last game. But I do think he does have some offense that is untapped. And it definitely doesn't help him that Koloko in the same day goes 12 of 13 from the floor and is, so and I'm big on Kamagate. And one of the reasons I'm big on him is, I guess you can say the same for the other guys, but he's such a late bloomer. And I had the opportunity to spend time with him in Paris and interview him. And one of the things that I mentioned to him was like, and I went to its under 18 tournament in 2019. So this particular tournament, Usman Garuba was in the tournament. Alperen Şengün, who was not the same player he is now, he was in the tournament. And then Sandy Aldama, who the Grizzlies drafted, won MVP of the tournament. So I was asking Kamagate, I said, were you on that French team? And he said, yeah. I said, I do not remember you. And he was like, yeah, I know. Nobody does. I barely played. But the jump that he made, because he was nowhere near those guys' level just two summers ago. I guess it's going on 3 summers now. So I think he's trending in the right direction. So I had a chance to watch him play. I posted the video I watched him play twice, and he absolutely kicked Wembanyama's butt at the game that I went to in early November. Drew maybe 2 fouls in like the first 8 minutes, was just too physical for him. And his motor just runs and runs. One of the things I look for in bigs is how well do you transition from defense to offense and vice versa. And I just think with his motor, his hands, and I think he has some upside as a shooter. If you look at the way his free throw percentage has climbed over the last year, shows that he's been putting in work. And he mentioned to me that he spent the summer working out with Gobert. They share the same agent, but just working with the French national team that, they won the World Cup in 2019 and finished second, or they won a silver medal. So I think that has helped him out with his confidence. And then I try to imagine, like, if he were playing in college basketball, where would we have him at? And I think if he were playing at like a UCLA or, one of these major college programs, I think that he could possibly be a lottery pick. So it switches back and forth over who I think is the best one of those guys. But, maybe I'm being a prisoner of the moment, but Koloko is the guy today.
Rucker, you've been preaching Koloko all season, since day one, almost obnoxiously. But me and you have also been pretty high on the Mark Williams bandwagon and have been super impressed with him all year. Williams is still currently, for me, the top guy.
Quick question. Were you going crazy when he made that buzzer beater shot? Well, it wasn't a buzzer beater, but Paolo threw him that bomb at the end of the shot clock, and he made this. The way he shot that with so much confidence, it's like he shot it like, yeah, I've had this in my bag. I just haven't been able to show it. So were you like jumping up and down when he made that shot?
When he shot that, I was, because me and Metcalf have been like kind of pushing everyone at No Ceilings, like, guys, get on the Mark Williams train. And then when he hit that, I was like, whoa, big fella, where did that come from?
But the way he released it with so much confidence, like I've been waiting for this opportunity. Now I have a legit reason to shoot this dirt shot because I have no other choice. So I thought about that, like, okay, yeah, he let that fly with a lot of confidence. He's been waiting for that moment. Sorry to cut you off there, but
no, I'm glad you brought that up.
But that's exactly what I wanted. So are you still, Rucker, are you still that high on Williams, or are you kind of leaning more towards Koloko at this point? Because I'm like Rafael just kind of hinted at, I think Williams has a little bit more than he's been able to show. But I also think he's one of the most productive and low maintenance players in the country right now.
Yeah. If he's hitting that, whoa, okay, like buckle up. But just all year, I've just been impressed with what he's done. I feel like every time I watch one of the Duke games in their, final stretch, he's making big plays. I can't get the Gonzaga game out of my head in the beginning of the year where he just looked like one of the best guys on the floor. So it's like Rafael said, it's kind of the time of the day, or, what side of the bed you wake up on, because I love Koloko, what I've seen the last month, especially. And then I always go back to like, Kamagate, I really like him. Like exactly what Rafael's saying. When I did a film dive and did a piece on him early in the year for No Ceilings, and that guy's motor never turns off.
Ever.
He is just flooring all over the place, and you're just like, this is awesome. Like, I just love it, because with bigs, if you play your butt off, like, I'm a sucker for that. So I think those are all three like really interesting bigs in this class that I feel like you could easily get a different answer from each person you'd probably talk to around the league. But bigs are weird because they kind of click and take that step at different times. So I feel like Kamagate being older, people might be like, well, and it's like, no, like sometimes they just, take a little bit of time to literally like see the light, and things start to fall into place. And Kamagate, Koloko, both in that same ballpark.
Yeah, and one of the things I like about Kamagate is that he is a late bloomer, and he's not one of these guys that has been praised as an NBA prospect for like the last few years. And just spending so much time in Europe, the hype machine isn't there in Europe. Like, even now when I do research on players and I'm trying to like go on YouTube to try to find the correct pronunciation of their name, there may only be like 1 or 2 videos on the guy. While if you take an American prospect who maybe even be like a 3-star recruit, he may have 20 YouTube videos, interviews. And so I said I'd say this. I think what I like about Kamagate is there's this hunger in him, and it reflects with how he plays and how he's, just kind of put himself in position over the last year or so as an NBA prospect. And I think that's going to carry over. I just kind of have a thing about late bloomers.
Mm-hmm.
And then even if you look at like Embiid and Jokic, again, I don't want to compare him to those guys. Neither one of those guys were like, the top dog at 17 or 18 years old. Embiid started trending that way, but he carried over that I'm behind everybody mentality. I need to catch up. And he still has passed guys up that were like way ahead of him. And that's one of the things I like about Kamagate. Like, there's this hunger that he has. And when I went out there to Paris, he finished like a full practice, and then he went through a full workout. And I just had the camera and I just started rolling. He was working on his ball handling. He was working on his 3-point shot. He was working on like fake swing passes to shoot threes. I mean, there were so many things that he was working on. And I'm like, okay, if he's doing this every day after practice, like the day before a big game, then I know that, this work ethic is going to continue even when he gets paid. So again, I just like guys that start trending in the right direction. And I like the guys that are kind of like underdogs that carry this chip and this hunger. And that's why I'm so high on Kamagate.
Do you think, Rafael, like, say late first round, a playoff team, they're just like, man, we really need a rotation big? I mean, do you think Kamagate is just one of those guys where it's like that would be a dream type of prospect you add, where he can just come off the bench, play his butt off, do those limited role, like, rebound, shot block, finish around the rim? Like, I feel like that's where you get to the point of the draft where those guys that could specifically help you in meaningful like minutes off of the bench, like Kamagate seems like a guy that smart front offices might be like, yeah, he would be a great piece to add while we continue to let him develop and build some confidence.
Yeah, I would like to see him have like the same role that Capella had. If you remember, Capella spent the entire season in the G League, and then all of a sudden the Rockets like threw him in the playoffs, and he provided a little bit of valuable business behind Dwight Howard. And then the next year he was their guy. And working in the G League, I always admired the Rockets at the time, their G League situation, because they really developed guys. And so, I mean, yeah, I could see Kamagate having a similar situation if he falls to like 28, 29 or 30. And if he ends up on that position, then he's going to a team that probably already has their playmaker that can just give him the ball and feed him on easy dump offs. And all he has to do is do what he's been doing, which is sprint the floor, grab rebounds, get offensive rebounds. And so I think that would be a good spot for him, especially for his career.
Well, while we're on the international train, I'd be remiss if I didn't pick your brain about Gabriel Procida, who I cannot get enough of. I adore him.
To put it lightly, Rafael, I promise. We're getting to a scary part of
I'm
the
being
podcast.
modest here, which is unfortunate. So what are your, I guess, let's just start big picture. What are your overall thoughts with Procida?
I like him a lot. I actually did a video on him, man, probably like September. So I feel like I was on the train a little bit early with Procida. And even though he was playing like limited minutes last year, you saw the flashes, the athleticism pops out, the shooting pops out, the confidence pops out. Like he's not afraid to let it fly. And even though I feel like I've been telling stories this whole episode, I have a funny Procida story.
No, we want stories. That's what this is about. We want stories. Come on.
And I've for the listeners that don't know, I have spent the majority of this basketball season in Europe and trying to, just kind of get a better handle on the European prospects. And I think I'm just so intrigued with how different basketball in Europe is and how you're trying to project a kid to the NBA and like how, if he were in the States, would he be in high school? Would he be in college? And in Europe, the thing about Europe is that in order to play minutes, you have to earn them. There's no reward for losing. There's no like, hey, our season's bad, let's play the young guys so we can get the top pick. In order to play in Europe, you have to be better than the man that's in front of you. And every game matters because even if you're on the worst team, you can get demoted to second division. So every game counts. And when you see young guys getting minutes, it's because they deserved it. And I went to a game to go watch him play against Milan, which is one of the top EuroLeague teams. And in Italy is really strict about COVID. So I go to this game and I take the train from Bologna to Milan, and I have a media credential, which for whatever reasons, as an American that's covering basketball in Europe, I can make one text and say, hey, can I have a media credential? And they're like, sure, go ahead. It's that easy.
Gosh, we need that. You hear that?
Oh, it's so easy. I mean, when I say I ask for a media credential, it's literally like access to, you can film on the baseline. You can do whatever you want to do. Like I can take the camera and like put it over the huddle. They don't care. In the States, it's like impossible.
Yeah.
So I go to the arena, and like here in the States for our COVID, we just have that paper that says if you've been double vaccinated. Well, in Europe, they have like this QR code. It's so much more high tech and all that. So I get to the game, and they don't let me in until like halftime because they're trying to find somebody that ends up explaining to them like, yes, Americans don't have this QR code. So I go to film, and I had access to film on the baseline. And I think he had like 12 points in the first half that I missed. And one of the differences between like basketball in Europe and the States, like if you watch a college game, there's TV timeouts, there's like the halftime show. In Europe, it's like all basketball. Like there's no TV timeouts. So if the game starts at like 7:20, and if you get there at 7:30, it might be halftime. Wow. In the States, if you're 30 minutes late for a tip-off, it still might be the first quarter because all the extra stuff that goes along. So I missed the first half. He had like his best half. And then by the time I get there in the second half, he only was able to get up 2 shots. It's almost like his teammates froze him out. So the next day I'm waiting. I'm trying to come back to, I don't know where I was going, but I had to leave the country. Every time I go to a new country, I got to get a COVID test, all this stuff. So I'm sitting there waiting on my results, and I'm back in Bologna. And I'm talking to my mom, and then I'm looking, and I see him walking down the street. So I tell my mom I gotta hang up. I go and I introduce myself, and I'm not nervous, but I'm just like, I don't want you to think I'm like this crazy fan. So I'm just saying, hey, I've done videos on you. I went to your game yesterday to scout you and watch you and create some content. I couldn't get in, yada yada yada. Then I'm like on my phone trying to like pull up a YouTube video to let him know like I've done this video, and he says, I know your voice. I listened to your podcast. So that was like, man, it was huge to me that, he listened to the podcast. So hopefully, we exchanged numbers. So hopefully I can go back and get some content on him. But all that being said, I love the athleticism. I think that he has a role as whether it's like a transition finisher, 3-point shooter, and he's so young. He's young, and but then again, I don't even know if he's the best Italian prospect. I struggle between him and Matteo Spaniolo, who's only 18, who I had went to watch the day before. But I mean, I like him a lot. I saw that he had like this amazing tip dunk a couple of days ago. And then I think like, all right, if he were in the States and we were watching him in March Madness, I think he could be a lock as a first round pick. Like if you were trying to, and I don't want to compare a white guy to white guy, but if you like Christian Braun or Christian Brown,
I love him and I can never say his name right. So don't worry about it. Cause I still can't figure it out.
Well, I mean, like, you know, I'm looking at what I'm saying. I'm looking at is how it's spelled. Which, you know. But if you like Brown, then you have to like Procida because they're both athletic. They're both kind of like straight line drivers, and Proscida's younger. So, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he is someone that ends up being higher on NBA draft boards than like NBA Twitter boards. But I like him a lot, though.
Rucker, are you still high on him, or have you cooled a little?
No, I still like him a lot. Shout out to Rafael for the Spagnuolo love because I like him too. So I mean, you know, we get
still in high school in the, you know, if you were in the States, he probably would still be in high school. So
yeah. Well, I'm a sucker for international prospects. So I watched those guys and I was like, yes, I'm buying stock on both. But no, I like Procida a lot. I really do think like young, good size. I feel like he's got a good frame to add some good weight, and the athleticism really just kind of sneaks up on you out of nowhere, and you're like, whoa, okay, I didn't know you can get up and bounce like that. So I like his all around game, and he's got a pretty shot. I know Metcalf is a very, very big fan. So no, I'm not cooling off. I still think that, like Rafael said, there's probably going to be some NBA front offices that might be higher on him than, you know, draft fans or draft Twitter.
Yeah. And I think like I like Spaniolo a lot, but I do think that Procida has a more defined NBA role as you know, floor spacer, transition finisher, switchy defender. So you know, it just depends. I mean, the crazy thing about Italy going forward on their national teams, they could have Procida, Spaniolo, and Banchero on their national teams. So, and then there's like Leonardo Okiki, who I don't know if you guys have had a chance to watch him play, but I think he's going to be a really, really interesting prospect for 2023.
Okay, well, there's name number 200.
There's my homework now for today.
You'll love him. Like,
oh god,
yeah, he's really, really under the radar, but he's got some tools that you're going to be like, okay, the right system, he's going to be good. Right, and the reason why he's not on, just real quick, the reason why he hasn't been getting a lot of love is his parents are Nigerian in Italy. He was born in Italy, but he doesn't have a passport, so he hasn't been able to play on like the national teams, which is where a lot of guys are kind of getting their love. And then he's not in like the Real Madrid system like Spaniolo was. So he hasn't been able to play at like next generation tournaments or anything like that. And then he's playing second division now. And then I think next year he'll be first division Italy. But I think that once he gets his passport, if he can get it this summer, it's almost like Giannis in a sense, how Giannis couldn't show up because he wasn't officially a citizen, so he wasn't playing in some of the other leagues, or maybe he couldn't even travel outside of the country. And so I think that's one of the reasons why you haven't heard from him or heard about him, I should say.
That passport and all that fun stuff is an absolute nightmare too. And when you know that Adidas tournament, that's where a lot of guys get exposure. So if you can't play in that, you really have to go grind. So yeah, now I got to watch. See, I got homework tonight.
I'm going to the Next Generation Tournament in a couple of days on Friday. So I'll be in Patras, Greece.
Oh, rough. That's a rough life.
Brutal.
But the travel. Yes, actually, you know, I'm doing a vlog. I'll release it. And, you know, when I first started doing it, I thought like, oh, how glamorous it was. But now I understand when scouts are like, I mean, just taking the train and trying to figure out how to get there. Because, you know, like in the States, if there's a tournament, it's going to be in Dallas, Houston, Denver, LA. Well, imagine like a big tournament and it is in Shoestring, Mississippi. When you're like, how do I get there?
Right.
And so that's what makes the travel in Europe a grind, because not all of them are in like major cities. And then depending on the country, like in Greece, they don't have like the sophisticated train system like Italy. So you have to figure out, all right, do I take a bus? And then I may end up having to take like one of those, I don't know, like a 15 passenger van bus with some random strangers to get to this particular town. So that's the part about it that is not glamorous at all. And then the Wi-Fi is terrible in Europe.
So, yeah, that definitely doesn't help, especially if you're on the YouTube grind.
Yeah, yep. So, but no, it's been fun, and just kind of having insight on some of these guys is something that I really, really enjoy.
Rafael, thank you so much for your time. This has been a lot of fun and just a great experience for us. But we do end every episode with going over the most, what is the best thing you've seen recently in the basketball world. So, Rucker,
I'll give him time to stall. Yeah. Metcalf does a really bad job, Rafael, of kind of giving a heads up about this, because I do a podcast with him twice a week and I'm still not prepared for it.
Yeah, so that's my fault.
Best thing I saw, I'm going to go with Mathurin, Benedict Mathurin, kind of taking over, making that big three, the weak side rebound he had. I'm excited to see what he can do against Houston. I think that's a name that probably is going to start making a little bit more buzz if they win a couple more games. So, Rafael, it also can be NBA related, which Tyler did not also.
Or high school or Pee-wee or something you did in the driveway.
The best well, it's probably, it means something to me. I was in a tournament in Belgrade, and I was at a table with a bunch of scouts. Didn't really know each other. It's just, you sit in the gym for 10 hours and you just become friends with guys. So, hey, let's go grab something to eat. And so there were a couple of scouts, and they were talking about this kid named Cameron Hunt. And I said, Cameron Hunt? And I said, I know that name. And the guy's like, yeah, I mean, we're thinking about signing him or something like that. And so I said, I actually know him. So long story short, when I was in high school, his mom had lived with my family for a little while. And I remember when he was born. And then I moved to Dallas, and then his mom moved to Dallas. And I watched him play in high school, and he was not good. He wasn't good at all. And he was really scrawny and just like underdeveloped. And then I remember he went away to college, and just, didn't know anything about it. So long story short, once they mentioned his name, I said, I know the kid. And I said, yeah, he went to like a small NAIA school. What I didn't know was he grew into his body at the NAIA school. He averaged like 33 points per game. And he's kind of carved out a career playing in Germany, to the point where I think he had a workout with the Utah Jazz. I mean, he's not like an NBA prospect, but it just kind of, like made me smile in the sense that I remember in high school in Dallas, around the time, this is when like Dallas had like Emmanuel Mudiay, Terrence Ferguson. I had worked for like the Mo Williams elite AAU team that had like 3 McDonald's All-Americans. And this kid wasn't even a top 50 player in the city of Dallas. But the fact that he's actually playing professionally and he has a chance to maybe play Euro Cup or Champions League, something like that, it really like made me smile. And I called his mom this morning just to let her know, like, hey, I've heard some things about your son from different agents, and whatever he's doing as an NAIA guy to get a shot in Europe, he's done something, whether it's his character, his work ethic, whatever it is. And so it just kind of made me realize that no matter how outside of a shot you have at like pursuing your dream, it can happen. I mean, I look at like myself, for an example. I started my podcast in 2020, and here I am 2 years later. Chad Ford has handpicked me. So it's kind of like, if you're an underdog and if you put in the work and you have good character, even when it doesn't seem like it's going to happen for you, you just never know who's watching. And then one day it can change. And so that, like, I mean, it just, I just talked to his mom this morning. That kind of made me smile because, again, he was like an NAIA kid that wasn't a top 50 player in the city of Dallas. And I heard that he had a workout with the Utah Jazz, and just hearing like different agents talk about him, that was the best thing that I've heard in a while. So to anyone that's listening, like that could be you, you can be this underdog that has a shot at pursuing your dream if you just put in the work and have good character.
Well, that is easily the best answer we have ever gotten.
Not even close.
That is awesome. Okay, so I'm looking forward to that movie one day. But Rafael, thank you again so much for joining us. Please tell everyone where they can find you, where they can support you.
Yeah, I mean, my Twitter account is Barlowe, BARLOWE 500. I'm on there every day. I need to learn how to set my tweets so that I can tweet while I'm asleep, like my guy Erson Demar. Have you guys noticed his tweets?
Yes, he's a monster with that stuff.
He told me that he sets his tweets. I'm like, oh, so you do sleep? You're cheating. So, because when I'm in Europe, by the time I wake up, everybody's asleep, and I'm missing everybody's tweets. So, but yeah, you can find me at Barlowe 500 there. I still have NBA Draft Junkies. I have my NBA Draft Junkies YouTube channel, which I'm gonna try to transition. I started getting flagged for like copyright videos.
Oh gosh.
So I don't want them to take my channel away. So I'm gonna start posting like original content. And so one of the videos that I'll post within the next couple of days is like my vlog experiences. So I'll post that, and then I'm on NBABigBoard.com. So I haven't officially taken over yet, but I will be taking over for Chad Ford once he officially retires. And then from there I have content like 3 days a week. And then I have the NBA Locked On NBA Draft podcast. So I'm a one-man army going against No Ceilings, who has like a team. But I'll just say this. If you love draft content, I feel like there's no better time in the world than to absorb it, because you're getting information from so many different guys. This No Ceilings collective, as Steven would say. I mean, they're all hungry guys that eat, sleep, breathe. When I was a kid, I used to want guys to like have deep draft conversations with, and you can only talk about who's ever the top pick. You can't talk about this guy at this NAI school or this mid-major guy. And so I feel like with No Ceilings and just all of draft Twitter, I feel like I'm not an oddball anymore. There's a bunch of guys that I can have deep conversations with about Gabriel Procida and his athleticism. So, but yeah, you can find me at NBA Big Board, NBA Draft Junkies, and Barlowe 500 on Twitter.
Rucker, plug away.
No, I'm not going too long after that because that was fun and awesome. But no, I'm at No Ceilings, NBA.com, just trying to keep up with Rafael because of all the good work he does. And this was a blast. And again, Rafael, for everyone at No Ceilings, like, congrats. I know you're going to absolutely kill it, taking over for Chad Ford, and he's in good hands. I'm excited to see what you do with that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, if you're not following Rafael already, please make sure you go do so. Everything he does, whether it's writing, podcasting, video work, it's all incredible. Thank you again so much for your time. Once again, I am Tyler Metcalf. You can follow me on Twitter at TeamMetcalf11, and please make sure to go follow No Ceilings at No Ceilings NBA. Please also make sure to subscribe on YouTube at No Ceilings TV, and you can find all of our written work for free at NoCeilingsNBA.com. It gets delivered directly to your inbox. There's no excuse not to subscribe. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and a 5-star rating. Until next time, see ya.